Oh, you were waiting for this one.
Yeah.
Fun fact, we tried to record this episode like almost a month, no, like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So he's had weeks to prepare this. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the We're So Young podcast. Today, we are here with Vinny Hamilton, a musical genius, a father, and a producer. Who are you, Vinny? Tell me about yourself.
All right. Hi, everybody. As Diana said, well, first of all, thank you very much, Diana, for having me on your prestigious podcast.
Of course, I'm so happy you're doing this.
I am a musician. I am a thinker. I am a lover of life. I am a Christian. And I am someone who just wants to see the best in people, basically.
Where are you from? Where'd you grow up?
All right. So I grew up in Jamaica. Both my parents are Jamaican. And so I have Jamaican citizenship. But I was actually born in London. Because they migrated to England before I was born, to study. And so they both got their degrees there. And that's where they had me and my younger sister. And so I spent my first 5 years there in England. And then from there, migrated back to Jamaica. And I spent my next 25 years growing up in Jamaica.
Oh, I didn't know you were there for so long.
Yeah.
Okay, so how old were you when you came?
I moved here when I was 30.
30. Oh, wow.
Moved to Miami when I was 30 and been here for the last almost 13 years.
I mean, you don't have to show your age like that.
It's okay.
But it's okay. We're so young.
Yeah, right? We're as young as we feel.
Yeah. And so have you been doing music your whole life? How did that start?
Okay, so music has been a part of my life from as long as I can remember. I don't remember much living in England, but I do remember migrating here, and Jamaica.
Yeah.
And I remember grade school in Jamaica, kindergarten, and doing music at that level. And I remember where I lived when we moved. I lived with my cousin and her mom, and my cousin was doing piano at the time. This was when I was 5 and 6, and I remember thinking that was really cool, and I wanted to kind of be like her, and I wanted to do what she was doing. So, what I ended up doing is I took pianico, which is like that little instrument that has like a keyboard and a little tube that you blow in.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people call it melodico, pianico, right? I took that for like a couple of months when I was really, really small. And then from there, I remember just doing classroom music and, loving it. Like you learn music in school.
Right.
I just did that. But I actually took it to heart. And I did pretty well. One thing that we did when I was in Jamaica is they used to have competitions. We used to call it like the festival series.
Okay.
Where you would compete against persons from other schools, and it's like a talent show / competition.
Okay.
And so you'd earn like different levels, whether it's like gold or silver or bronze, or a certificate of merit or that kind of thing. And I used to be involved in that. I sang on the school's choir.
You sang too.
Yeah. So right. So outside of classroom music, I was involved in choir, and singing like sacred songs, singing patriotic songs, Jamaican patriotic songs, singing some Jamaican folk songs and that sort of stuff, and participating in these competitions. And I remember when I was moving from elementary school, what you call elementary school here, there we call it primary school or preparatory school.
Right.
So I was moving from there, transitioning to what you guys would call middle school, but for us it's basically like junior high.
Right.
And so I was moving on to high school, and in that transition period over the summer, I was selected along with another young lady from my school to participate in a program at the only conservatory in Jamaica at the time. It was called the Jamaica School of Music. Today it's known as Edna Manley College for the Performing Arts.
Okay.
And this was when I was 10. I got chosen to study trumpet over the summer. This was like a summer scholarship program. And I did it throughout the summer. And then I remember going into high school. I continued for like the first year of my high school career, studying trumpet, trombone, and French horn. So I did like quite a few brass instruments. Um, and yeah, that's how it started. Sang on the choir all through my high school career. Um, and eventually I asked I asked my parents for um, drumsticks and a drum pad,
Okay.
and a keyboard and stuff, and I got them. When I was in high school, I also joined what you guys call the ROTC program,
Mm-hmm.
right? The JROTC. So I was a cadet, and I was a part of the marching band in my school, and that's where I learned how to play drums. I learned snare drum there. I learned bugle horn there, and my parents got me a keyboard, and through singing on the choir, that's how I really learned how to play music and how to understand music. I learned music by being on a choir.
That's insane because I've been on a choir and I have zero skill the way that you have skill. So, just backstory for people that don't know Vinny, he, like, I'm not joking when I say he's a musical genius. Like, he literally will listen to a song once, like a song with like 1,000 different parts on it, and be like, oh, and you can't see my face, but it's just like a squinting of an eye and being like, okay, trying to listen in, and then all of a sudden can play it no problem on the keyboard or on the piano, and it's just like, what? How did, like, you hear it once and you're like, hold on, be quiet for like 2 seconds, and then you get it, and it's just so impressive.
Okay, so choir is an interesting thing. Basically, what choir is like different building blocks of musical parts that you put together. You synthesize it, and then it creates this beautiful synergy of sound that's bigger than the individual parts added up together. And that's how I learned music. So I learned harmonic structure through choir. I learned the importance of blending through choir. I learned rhythm through choir. It just so many things. Learn arrangements through choir. You learn about vocal support and playing your role as part of a larger team. Choir is one of the best experiences ever, and I really have to you know give it its credit when it comes on to making me who I am today, especially musically. You know, yeah, you learn that the melody is the lead, and you learn how to harmonize below the lead, how to harmonize above the lead, and how to support it, and where harmonies move and how things flow. It's music is really about flow, and learning how to go with the flow.
Yeah.
And so yeah. That,
Wow. That's yeah. And so how many instruments can you play?
that's a weird question. How many instruments can I play? I would say the answer is an unlimited number, because I can play anything that creates music. And sometimes we think, even outside of the conventional norms of instruments, anything that creates a sound that can be considered pleasing or harmonious can be considered an instrument.
Right.
Which is why you have stomp, where people are playing on buckets and
Yeah.
all that sort of stuff. Yeah, I mean, I used to play on the walls. So like.
Sure, your parents loved that.
Oh yeah, it was fun. 2 in the morning, my mom's shouting at me, yelling at me to stop. But yeah, I mean, I can play an unlimited number, but what do I actually play? At this point in time, my primary instrument is anything with a keyboard. So I play piano, electronic synthesizer, organ, those sorts of instruments. In addition, I was a drummer. Professionally. I used to play for a couple of churches and do that. And I've also learned how to play flute. I taught myself to play flute, and so those are my three primary instruments.
Yeah. So, talking about going with the flow, as a you are a musician. You know, that is like that's something that is so I admire so much because like that's you don't do anything that's not being a musician, you know. And I'm very similar in that sense when it comes to acting. Like I don't take jobs unless I can be an actor in some sort of way. How do you find that that is difficult in this industry? How did you transition into that? Like, have you always just done like, like
No,
did you get a camp
yeah.
job too? Where you got to, teach, at 17, because that's how I started teaching, acting.
Well, hmm, okay. So I was a stellar student. Uh, it's coming out of my mouth. It can sound boastful. I'm not boasting. It's just I was a good student, um, and so all throughout my school career, primary school, high school, college, I did well in school. You know, um, my father's an engineer, and my mom was involved in banking, and so they're college level educated, and they had a certain level of expectations. I'm their first son. um, I'm their only son, and from my dad's firstborn child, they had a certain level of expectation in terms of what I would do as a professional. So they expected me to either become one of the traditional pursuits: a doctor, a lawyer, maybe an accountant, maybe an engineer like my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, did well in school, had the aptitude for it. I went to, I did, okay. In Jamaica, we call it sixth form. So, like, that's like 12th grade. Like, that transition, well, it's like the upper level of high school here, right? High school really ends at 11th grade in Jamaica, and you can opt to do grades 12 and 13. You don't have to. Or you
Oh.
can go straight to university, or you can get a job. You I did grades 12 and 13. And, in doing so, um, it's called like advanced level high school. And so I sat advanced level courses, um, you know, run by a governing board in England. I applied to colleges in England. I got into law school in England. I got into chemical engineering school. Um, I did the SATs, and I got a scholarship level score. Um, and I could have gone here to college at the time. And I got into school. The main camp, the main university in Jamaica is called the University of the West Indies, or at least at the time. There are different ones there now, but at the time that was the main university there. And I got into the University of the West Indies as well. And I wanted to do music. This is what when I was leaving high school, I knew at the time I wanted to do music, but I had nothing on paper saying I knew anything about music. I had never gone to a formal music school, never been educated in that way. I was self-taught at that time. This you're talking about when I was like 17, you know, 17 going 18. Um, by that time, I was playing piano and I was playing drums. Hadn't started flute yet. Um, I was playing drums for churches and teaching myself piano. I was writing songs, that sort of thing. Um, I applied to a college here, uh, one of the premier music schools here in it's actually in Boston, called Berkeley College of Music. And like I said, I had nothing on paper saying I know anything about music. I didn't submit an audition tape. I just applied. I wasn't supported by my family. They really wanted me to pursue the traditional route in terms of my education, and I wasn't really feeling that. I was kind of searching. My dad, in particular, was not very supportive of me pursuing anything artistic. He used to always say, it's a man's role to support his family, and as an artist, like, how am I going to do that? Um, and so I was questioning a lot, in terms of my path and the choices I was making. And so I applied. I got turned down by Berkeley. Understandably so, because I didn't submit anything, and it's very competitive.
It's like you
You know,
didn't
I
send us
submitted the
a
application, and
yeah,
that's it. You
but
know,
not an audition video.
yeah, nothing. So, got turned down, and so I went to University of the West Indies. I didn't go to England. I remember at that time I was very down. I was kind of depressed, um, you know, because I felt like even though I was successful on paper academically, it was not what I wanted to do, and I was not being supported in what I wanted to do. You know, another area that I was interested in at the time too was uh, pursuing politics because I I wanted to make a difference. That's always been a part of who I am. I am apparently I'm a natural leader, and so
I believe that.
you know I've always been that kind of change maker. I want to see the best in people, and so I was thinking about politics, and that's another area that my parents were like, nope, you're not doing that. So my dad was like, no, you're not doing the arts, and my mom was like, no, you're not becoming a politician. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll just float and go follow the path of least resistance, and I ended up going to University of the West Indies, staying in Jamaica, and I eventually graduated with a bachelor's in geography, Bachelor of Arts in Geography.
Okay.
So that's my degree, my first degree. And yeah, um, while at University of the West Indies, I moved on from participating in choirs to eventually running choirs. At one point in time, I was running a 60 voice choir. I was very involved with the Christian Fellowship on my campus at the time, and um, eventually I met some friends and we formed a band. So when I left University of the West Indies, I graduated with a degree, but I also left being a member of a band, which was awesome for me because then I now had an outlet for what I wanted to do.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And so it's interesting because you were saying about how your dad was like, you have to be a provider or whatever. You have a beautiful wife and 2 kids, and you are the main provider, and you're one of the most successful musicians that I know. So that's just, that just kind of goes to show that it's just like you just kind of have to believe in that. So yeah, so how did you go from playing music, being in a band, to now not only are you a musician and you play with many bands and you create your own songs, which you've been doing for a long time, but now you've also ventured for a while, from what I remember, into production, and now you're producing. So how did that all come about?
Okay, so I've always been creative. When I was younger, like I was saying in high school, I was writing songs, and when I started, well, let me start here. So early 20s, graduated from university, and I started teaching. Um, at the time, I was teaching in Jamaica. I was teaching economics, and
It's so funny. It's like a whole nother person. Like,
yeah,
okay.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Teaching economics, but then after my first year, I got the opportunity to start teaching music along with teaching economics. So I was, teaching music, and the the school I was working at, they had a small Yamaha keyboard. Yamaha's a brand, sorry, but yeah, not endorsing any particular brand, but they had a small keyboard, and it had something called a sequencer on it. So let me just give you some backstory with that. So basically, electronic synthesizers, some of them have built-in sequencers, which is something that you can use to record musical parts. And if it's like a 4-track sequencer, you can record 4 parts. Or if it's a 16-track sequencer, you can record 16 parts. And then you can play them all at the same time. And so this had a sequencer. It had a 4-track sequencer. And I remember just kind of fooling around and playing, some drums on one track, and then playing a bass line on another track, and then playing some like piano stuff on another track, and some other, random stuff on another track, and putting it together and, kind of experimenting with it. And, that's how production started. Like, I started fooling around with it. And I when I started really running the music program at the school I was at, um, we used to do the same competitions that I did as a child. I was now submitting, and sending students now, my own students, to participate in that same competition. And I
Okay.
was making tracks for them to sing along to.
Right. Full
So,
circle.
exactly. So I started making tracks for people and, you know, recreating tracks of songs that already existed. But then I started also creating original music of my own on this sequencer. And, I play them for people and they're like, this is pretty good,
Yeah.
And
Which we're gonna get to hear some of Vinny's songs at the end of the episode. We're gonna
nice,
put something in there.
nice, awesome. So, you're fooling around with it. And eventually I got my own equipment. I got a computer for myself and I got some studio equipment. And I started really taking the whole production thing a little bit more seriously. I was working sometimes with the bassist from the band I was in at the time, and we'd do some stuff together and create music together, and just kind of experimenting with different software and that kind of thing. This is all again still when I was in Jamaica. Eventually, my work got into the hands of some producers with some clout. And so at one point in time, I was, working in studios, playing on professional music, you know, um, and this again, still while I was in Jamaica. Um, I think there's a symbiosis with playing in a band and producing, because playing in the band kind of created the demand for music, and so I
Right.
would create the music behind the scenes, and it would feed the band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it kind of worked hand in hand. Similarly, when I moved here, within a week of moving, actually before I even moved here, I was recommended to a band. They were told I was coming up, and the links were made, and so within a week of moving here, I was in a band again, and the band was trying to record, and so I would create music here, and so that's kind of how everything kind of started. It
Yeah.
kind of started there, and then it just took on its own life. So now
Yeah.
I'm producing music.
Uh, what was the decision to come to the U.S.? How did that come about?
Okay, so my mom migrated here. She came first, and life in Jamaica was good, but the world is a big place, and we have more of a larger worldview.
Right.
So she migrated here,
And they lived in London, so it's like they lived in other places too, which is another.
They're opportunity seekers, you know
Right.
what I mean? And so she was trying to seek a better life for herself and her family. So in the process of migrating here, she filed, for us. She submitted, papers for us so that we could move here and live here as residents. And when I say us, I'm talking about myself and my sisters. And the process takes a long time. So she actually filed for me when I was in my early 20s, very early 20s, and I didn't move until I was 30.
Right.
It took a long time going through that whole process. But by the time I got approved and I got my residency status here, I realized I had already made a life for myself in Jamaica.
Right. It's literally starting over.
It really is. I was doing well. I was on track to doing some really great things.
Yeah.
And
Were you married by then?
no, I didn't get married at that time.
Okay. But you knew your wife. That's a whole nother cute little story.
Knew my wife. We were dating. I was doing well. This is now in my late 20s. Got through. So what I did for like the last 2 years, before I moved, I had to be traveling every 6 months just to keep my residency status active.
Right.
Traveling up here and then going back down because I was still working there, still living there in Jamaica. And I decided to take the plunge and move here full time. And I also got married. So what we did, I got married December 30, '06, and I moved here January 3, '07. So we just did like a
Wow.
huge, like double change
Yeah.
simultaneously. Pretty
Whew.
much. Got married and migrated.
Wow.
New country, new wife, new life.
Yeah.
you know, um,
Wow. That's a
note to
huge
self. I
transition.
know, yeah. Oh God. So I
Holy.
know this question is coming at the end. You talk about, advice to your younger self. Yeah, maybe that was not the wisest thing. Taking on such big, drastic life changes simultaneously. Because just moving alone to a
It's
new country is a
huge.
huge deal. And getting married by itself is a huge deal. When you combine them, oh my God.
Yeah.
But yeah, it worked out. We're
I think
we're
another
here.
thing that's like was kind of beneficial as far as the marriage is that you actually have known your wife her entire life, and so I think there was a little bit of like, well, I mean, you never really know somebody, but I do think that like you guys possibly knew each other enough to make the transition a little more smoother than like someone who'd been dating someone for like 2 years or something.
That's definitely true. Yeah, my wife, her name is Rhoda Ann. We've known each other for many years. She actually used to play with my little sister. We're neighbors. And so I've known her since she was probably 4. And yeah, you know, grew up in the same neighborhood, and we lost touch at one point, when she was in
Yeah.
her early teens, late teens. Reconnected in her early 20s, and yeah, we're still together.
Yeah.
Um,
Two beautiful carbon copies of your both. We were just talking about that. They have a boy that looks just like Vinny and a little girl that looks just like her, and it's just like, yeah, so cute.
yeah, we have 2 lovely children, and I'm very, very grateful for my life and the way it has developed. But yeah, that's how I ended up here. My mom filed for us, and my mother has been a very invaluable, constant source of support. My mom is awesome. I don't think she'll probably ever hear this podcast, but if she ever does, mom, just know that I am eternally grateful. You really are. Like, most mothers, I guess, are really good, but like my mom is like, she's superwoman, and she really has made this possible for me.
Yeah.
Supported me. She bought me my flute, my first flute when I got it. She was the one that sent me to the brass camp. You know, she was the one that made sure I sang in choirs. She's the reason why I'm doing music today.
Yeah.
You know.
And I'm sure she's so proud.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. Maybe.
I mean, I'm sure. I'm sure she is.
We argue. Like, she okay. My mother she's funny. She's very vocal and very direct and blunt.
Love
so,
people like that.
Yeah,
That's like me.
it's very very strong woman. So at this stage of my life now, she's like, make sure you stop and smell the roses. She speaks with a Jamaican accent,
Yeah.
So make sure you stop and smell the roses. Like, she's like saying, I'm doing too much. I'm staying too busy. I need to slow down.
Yeah.
And I heed the advice. So she is proud of me, but I know she also has concerns,
Right.
about the pace at which I move sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about that. I think any artist in particular, where it's the life of a hustler. If you're really doing it, someone like you, someone like me, who just like, we don't do anything unless it can fulfill us artistically to some degree. It is a constant hustle. It is a constant pace that you kind of have to live, especially when you have to support other people. So how do you find some sort of balance to be the dad, to be the teacher that you are, because you're like, you're a teacher, you know what I mean? Like, you teach from the heart, and you just like get, I've seen you invest so much in the people that you believe in. So how do you do that and then also do work that fulfills you? because that's another thing. It's one thing being like, okay, well, I'm gonna play here to make money, but I'm gonna write this music to fulfill me, you
Right.
know. So how do you find that balance, and do you find the balance sometimes, and
Yeah. Okay.
when is it easier, when is it harder, you know?
All right. So let's start here. You know, there's a joke about Jamaicans and the number of jobs they have. So I
Mexicans too.
typify, yeah, I typify that joke. So I am the stereotypical Jamaican hustler. Um, I work as a full-time teacher, teaching music. At this stage of my life, that's all I'm teaching right now. Nothing else, no econ or anything else, just music. Um, I That's like a 9 to 5 job. Outside of that, I am the musical director at a church, um, and that has me very involved on the weekends. I'm there on Saturdays. I'm there on Sundays. So I do work 7 days a week. Outside of that, I am a freelance sideman. So if you look up sideman in the dictionary, the definition is a musician who plays in a band accompanying an artist.
Yeah.
And so I am a sideman by profession. And I've played for many people. I play many different styles of music. And yeah, I travel all over the world doing this.
Yeah. You're about to do
I
a
am.
show.
Yeah, right. I'm about to go again. I just came back from Georgia, California before that. I'm about to go to Tunisia, and God knows where I'm going to be going next. But yeah, I'm a sideman, and I work all the time as a sideman.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
So like, I will work in the daytime as a teacher, and then I'll have a gig in the evening, or whatever. Outside of that, I have my own production company, as we were discussing.
Yeah.
So I am producing music, and putting out records and marketing records and doing all of that, recording people actively. So I'm wearing many different hats, and I'm grateful. I can honestly say I've never been unemployed. And I know not many people have that privilege. I'm very humble, and I don't take it for granted. You know what I mean? I work hard, but I recognize that there are lots of people who work hard who don't necessarily get as many opportunities as I have, and I'm very, very grateful, and I do not take it for granted. But I've never been unemployed. I've always had more than one job going on.
Yeah.
Um,
But I think that also comes with the nature of being able to handle that as well.
Yeah.
I think coming from someone who also wears too many hats that you want that I don't want, but it's just you kind of have to learn that pacing and that.
Yeah, there's a push and pull to it. I realize I have a family. I have a mortgage, I have bills, and I have to take care of home. And in doing so, I was prepared to do whatever it takes. I don't care. I'll wash cars for a living. I'll garden for a living. I don't care. Whatever it takes to make sure that needs are met, I'm gonna do it. I'm just grateful that I've been able to use my talents to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy about that. I'm very humbled. But so in teaching, I love teaching. I've been doing it for over 20 years. But it's a way to make sure that my ends are met. You know what I'm saying? It's like my stability. And then my creativity is my outlet. So my production company is not profitable yet, but I'm sure it will be.
Yeah.
We are now actually at the stage where we're putting out records and pushing them, and I'm actually now seeing returns.
Yeah, you
time.
are selling music
I
officially,
am
which
officially. Yeah.
that'll be available on the podcast website. All the links into that.
Nice.
So on top of hearing his music at the end of the episode, you always have links as well to be able to hear it and purchase. So that'll be exciting.
Yay. Um, so that's my outlet and my creativity. Going back to the original question about balance, it's a very hard balancing act. It's very challenging. Sometimes I miss the mark. You know, sometimes I push it too hard. Yeah. So I have to be very careful. I have to pace myself. I'm a very involved parent. Both of my children attend the school that I work at, so I get to spend time with them in that way. I used to teach my son. I actually still teach my son piano. I have never taught my daughter, which is actually probably a good thing because we're very close. It would be interesting having her in the classroom as my student, but
she's also little.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'm very very involved in my children's life. I'm not an absentee dad by any means. And so, like, just today we're at the pool together. Tomorrow I'm taking them to the movies. That kind of thing. I try to make sure I spend quality time. So even though the quantity may not be as much as I would like all the time, I make sure I give them quality time. So when I'm here, I'm really here with them. And then the other thing is, I have a certain thing called my sacred time. Usually between like 5 and like 7:30. That's their time. We're commuting home. We're doing home stuff. Getting homework done. Eating. Taking care of home. Getting ready for bed. That kind of thing. I try my very best to schedule things outside of those times so that I keep that time sacred. They understand that I work as well, so they're used to giving me my time and my space.
Yeah.
They're affectionate, but they're not clingy.
Yeah, but they're also good listeners, and they're also I mean, I think you've, as a parent, because I've seen you parent, you found a good balance of being very caring and very giving and very loving, and also being like, don't touch my piano, Yeah. So they're very
children
good.
need boundaries.
Yeah.
And we established that. I make sure they know I'm accessible, but I also make sure they know, okay, this is work time, this is not playtime.
Yeah.
So they know the difference.
Yeah.
And so,
But even then, Shiloh, I mean, okay, so for those of you that don't know, which you should, Vinny actually wrote the theme song to the We're So Young podcast.
Oh, yay.
So it is actually, it is a Vinnie Hamilton original. And he worked on it. I just threw ideas and was like, I don't know, give me this. And so on the final day, the day that we were just really kind of getting through the idea of it, Shiloh sat literally on my lap the entire time, and she was like listening. She was like, yeah. And it was nice to like just even see somebody else in the room giving feedback. I'm sure that like it being your kids is such a cool
It is
thing.
Cool. Like if they don't like something, I know it's not fire. And if they're bouncing to something, I know it's probably on its way. You know? They give me feedback all the time. They hear my music all the time. Seth actually has played on a couple of things, just for fun.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
fun.
Yeah, it's just, why not? And we have fun together. So I spend a lot of time with them. To be very honest, I do sometimes miss the mark. It's a challenge finding that nice centered balance. It is important to spend time with family. It is important not just to spend time with your children, but also to spend time with your spouse. Because there is that too.
And she works a lot as well.
Yeah, she's a real hard worker, and we make it work together. We dream. She has her dreams, and I have my dreams, and we dream and build together. You know what I mean? Like, before we got married, she knew that this was the path I was on, and she was ready and willing to support me on it. I saw her through school. She's now a nurse, and I made sure she pursued what she wanted to do. Now she's employed as a nurse, and we're pursuing our dreams together, and we're building life together. It it's a it's not the stereotypical Huxtable kind of situation where you work a 9 to 5, you come home and you have dinner around the table all the time. It's not like that. On Sundays, my family gets together and we have dinner with my mom and my sisters when they're here and stuff, and that's sacred as well. So that's something we do regularly, and I try to honor that as best as I can. Obviously, when I'm traveling, or whatever, then I'm not here. But outside of that, I try to keep that time as sacred as I can.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's great.
And we just do a lot of things that we can do. We take family vacations, together. But when it's work and hustle time, it's work and hustle time, and they understand that, and I go for it. I have been guilty of pushing it too hard, and I've suffered for it. I've done, like, I was in an accident, recently, like not even a year now.
Yeah, it's gonna be a year like soon, but it hasn't even been a year.
Not a year yet. No, I was in a major car accident, and a big part of why it happened is I was tired, pushing it too hard. And this is just, I'm actually confessing this here, just to remind us as artists to try and find that balance and to rest. Rest is important. Health is important. Like, if I'm dead, I can't create. So I gotta make sure I take care of me, and take care of my family and rest, because I can't be dead and doing this. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, like, I just have to be responsible and try to find that balance. Since that accident, I have been more deliberate with my rest time. Still busy, but also still taking more time to, as my mother would say, stop and smell the roses. Yes, mom, I listen to you. So I do the best I can.
Yeah. Talk about the struggle that you've had putting your own work out there, like specifically as a producer, just kind of just going for it and just kind of dealing with the back and forth of.
I've gone through a lot with that. A lot of rejection. Yeah. So I actually started my production company in 2011. And it was a small little boutique company, no money to speak of. So what I chose to do is put out one record and put everything I had, behind that one record. I remember before that, people would say, "I like your ideas, but I don't like your sounds. Your sound is weak. Your sound." I used to get a lot of criticism about the sounds that I was using in my productions, and just the general sound quality of the overall product. And sometimes it was hard. It hurt a lot, because you're talking about things that you spent hours working and slaving over. You've invested a lot of time. You've invested a lot of heart into making, and you share it with people, and the response is less than favorable sometimes. And
yeah.
So one of the things I had to learn is, one, I need to thicken my skin and toughen up and accept criticism. It's a part of the process. Two, can't please everybody, and I'm not going to try to please everybody. Like, I believe in the concept that there is someone who will like what you're doing. Even if everyone doesn't, someone will. And as an artist, I had to come to the realization that I'm not necessarily making art for everybody to like it. but I'm making it for that person, you know.
Right.
And it starts with me, you know. If I don't endorse it, it's not going out. So I have to like it first. Um, and then the other lesson that I learned, which I really took to heart, and I've changed, it has changed how I do things, is I don't do things halfway. I go all the way. So like, you know, sometimes it takes money and you have to spend money to make sure your quality is on par with and competitive with what's out there.
Yeah.
Let no one be able to say your sound quality is poor, or your, you know, not so much your ideas, but what you're working with is subpar. Nope, not having that. So I would invest in, you know, equipping myself with what I need to put out quality. So I spent a lot money, time, you know, just really making sure that that was there. Um, you know, and it takes money to create.
Yeah.
You know, let's not be naive about it. You know, it takes money, and you have to invest time. It's work.
Yeah.
You know, as an artist, like, you know, I think all people think that when we say we're artists, we just, you know, we just float and live free.
Right.
And, you know, we're not bound by deadlines. We're not bound by, you know, traditional work ethic. Nope. Artists work hard. Successful artists are where they are because of their work ethic. There is no artist that you've heard of in mainstream media that is not a hard worker.
Yeah.
At least none that stay there. There are some that happen to get there by chance, but if they stay there for any period of time, they're hard workers and they've earned the right to be there, and that's why you hear about them. And I respect every single artist, even if I don't necessarily like their work or it's not what I would appreciate. I respect all the artists who are doing this because it takes work. Work ethic is very important. You gotta show up. Yeah, you gotta, you know what I mean? You gotta show up and you gotta do it. You gotta complete and repeat, you know, and so,
Like
yeah.
That,
I've been judged a lot, and it's okay. I accept it. I accept criticism. I'm not perfect. I don't boast as being the best musician. That's not my game. That's not what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sure I represent me and my art.
Yeah.
You know.
You're true to what you stand for. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. That's beautiful, and difficult to do.
Yeah.
It's difficult to do.
But it took me. I mean, like after starting in 2011 and putting out that first record, I got like a lot of traction with that first record. And then I did a follow-up that I thought was even better than the first one. It went nowhere. Nowhere. And it was so depressing, I stopped producing. I literally stopped working on my productions for 5 years. I did nothing production-wise. I instead worked as a sideman and, you know, did a lot more work in that area. And built my network and, you know, built my reputation in that area. And then I also got sounds and, you know, just built up my collection of sounds and stuff. But, like, I wasn't putting out anything. I wasn't creating anything or putting out anything. And
do you think that took a toll on your mental health as well? You're just too busy to even...
No, it was... I was at a place where I was depressed about the creative process. And, you know, I felt like my work was no good at one point in time, and I was like, I'm just gonna stop for now. I kept my company active because I figured I'd go back to it, but I just stopped. You know, I was like, I'm not ready to do this right now, and I took a different road. You know, the whole question of the whole mental health thing and my need to create came later because I realized that I needed that outlet. I needed to put out things. So that's when I decided, okay, I was going to go back into it.
Believing that and really sticking through the commitment of knowing that you are not just saying you're going to get back to it, is actually going back to, exactly. You know, no matter how long it actually takes you to get back to it. But if it's like, if this is a goal, then like, you know, dust it off the shelf, you know, don't actually just keep it there. Yeah. So that's so that's amazing. That you really, honestly, you are like the most successful musician that I know, And I think it is because of that dedication and because of that, like, constant, like, need to create, you know. You work so hard even when we work with, like, little itty bitty kids, you know. And it's just like, well, are you sure they're like 5? You need to, you're like, yes, you know. So it's just like, but that is what makes you so you will receive what you are putting out, essentially.
Yeah.
You know, and you put out so much. So I think that definitely, you know, falls into your favor in a positive way. Yeah, hands down. So we are reaching towards the end of the episode. So I know you already touched upon it a little bit, but if you could tell your 18, 19-year-old self who is now officially going to school for geography, something like on his first day of school, what would you say?
Wow. Okay. Submit an audition tape when you're applying to Berkeley, you know. I would say, one, enjoy the process. It's not a race, like, with an end, the way we think about, you know, winning a prize. You know, sometimes the process is the prize.
Yeah.
You know, being an artist is not about having a record on the radio, or, you know, it's not about, you know, winning a Grammy, or it's about being a professional in an industry and where you're creating for your work. You know, it doesn't matter the accolades. The accolades don't matter. You know what I mean? The hype doesn't matter. It's about the journey and working and being fulfilled in what you're doing. That's one thing I would say. I would definitely say, don't bite off more than you can chew at any one time. So like I had mentioned with the whole migrating marriage thing, you know, probably wasn't the wisest idea, you know. So be wise. I definitely believe strongly in 5-year plans. Planning is important. Planning and follow through, you know. But planning, I find that a lot of artists are great with follow through, or, you know, doing stuff, but they don't necessarily believe in planning. Yeah. And I definitely believe in, you know, setting a goal and then working towards the goal.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's great advice. That's great advice.
That'll be it.
So what is something new that you've done recently?
Well, something new I've done recently. I've gotten back into production. I've released 2 new singles.
Which are called?
Okay, so one is called Day Off by Paul Anthony. It's in the dancehall genre. And the other one is a cover of a Sade song called Cherish the Day by Unique. It's a reggae song. And
they're both available for purchase.
Where? On all digital platforms that you can, you know, think of. You know, videos out there, and yeah, it's happening. And I've been doing this, and I'm very happy that I'm doing this. You know, success on numbers or not, like, this is what I want to do. And yeah, so far, we just put out the song Day Off, and already it's up to like almost 25,000 views on YouTube.
Nice.
And, you know, yeah, we're doing it. You know, what else? Yeah, I would say that's it.
And what's something new you want to try?
All right. Yeah. So this is actually this is one thing that's totally not related to music or anything else. This is something I also want to do for me. I am at some point in time going to do flight school. So.
What? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to learn how to fly just because I want to learn how to fly.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I don't have any. I'm not sure when yet, but it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Well, when you do, I'll take your flights.
There we go.
Yeah, I'm ready.
I'll fly you somewhere.
Yeah. So thank you again so much for doing this and for being on the show and for doing my theme song and just for being the like amazing person that you are. Check him out on the socials, on Facebook, on Instagram, and also VinnieHamiltonProductions.com.
Yeah. If you search for VINNI and then Hamilton HAMILTON, that's me. And yeah, you find me on all social media. I'm reachable like that.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So enjoy Day Off. Listen to Day Off by Paul Anthony, which is produced by Vinnie Hamilton.
I know you like it when we just cool and all a vibe, so don't fight it. I want to make you feel alright. Girl, let's take a day off. Call into work sick. Come get this good love. Tell the boss say you can't make it. And nobody ever knows, say you really just laid up here with me. Let's take the day off, baby, so you can forward the work to me. Hey girl, wherever you wanna go, we can ride. With you by my side, all I need is a light. Let's get high, cruise the coastline, lose track of the time. It's hard to ignore how you're so fine. I can make you feel like the old times. I'm yours if you wanna be mine. Give me with the style and rhyme. Cause you know, nothing stressful like routine workflow. Pack your bag then my girl and let's go. Where are we headed? Well, I don't really know, but let's get there fast on this your day off. Calling to work sick. Come get this good love. Tell the boss say you can't make it. And nobody ever knows, say you really just laid up here with me. Let's take the day off, baby, so you can forward the work to me. Sexy girl, me want to see how you twerking. Drop it down low, make it third me. Cause you're the one that I want. Your body is a blessing, what ya? Left the money, let's have a good time. Nothing worth more than with peace of mind. And you remind me of Britney, oh you keep telling me to hit that one more time. Just let the boss know you're not coming today. Cause with you the time seems to slip away. When you're about to leave my bedroom I say, let's take another day off. Calling to work sick. Come get this good love. Tell the boss say you can't make it. And nobody ever knows, say you really just laid up here with me. Let's take the day off, baby, so you can forward the work to me. Let's take a day off. Calling to work sick again. Come get this good love. Tell the boss say you gotta make it. And nobody ever knows, say you really just laid up here with me. Let's take the day off, baby, so you can forward the work to me.
Thanks again for listening to the We're So Young podcast. Like what you've been hearing? Help spread the word. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Rate, review, and tell your friends about We're So Young. And don't forget to follow us on our socials, at We're So Young Podcast on Instagram, at We're So Young Pod on Twitter, and We're So Young Podcast on Facebook. Let's all get inspired to try new things together. That's it for now. Tune in on the 1st and the 15th of each month for new episodes. Until then, step out of your comfort zones and try new things, 'cause we're so young.